There we go. So I was thinking about it because obviously I'd seen that you'd registered, Alexandra. Are you both, what generation would you put you guys in?
I'm millennial, I think. I think you are as well.
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
like a mix of the two, isn't it? So because I feel like when you look at the actual age brackets they give, some say 95 onwards, some say 2, and I'm 95, so.
Oh, so you're right on the edge, yeah. So generally, Generation Z is 1996 to 2010, but there's definitely an overlap. So I've got 2 boys, and Thomas is most definitely Generation Y, and he was born in 1998, so he should be Z, but he's not. There's definitely very different from his brother. So yeah, so it's an interesting section. So you feel free, please, to interrupt me or disagree with any of this, because obviously this is kind of very different. Because usually I'm presenting this to older people, sadly. So what we're going to look at, oh, good God. Right, what we're going to look at really is who are Generation Z and how to recruit these people into your organisation. So it's a really important area because in the next 8 years, Generation Z will make up 30% of the workforce. And typically, of course, you know, management happens as you get older through your career. And therefore, if you want to get younger generations into the workforce, and there's loads of brilliant reasons to do this, you've got to be able to engage with them. And obviously, working recruitment, this is something that's really important, certainly to me. So that's what we're going to look at. I mean, if you've got any questions, you know, throughout this, just ask, please. So who are they? So I said they're 1996 to 2010. So they're tech natives. So this is a phrase which will probably make you guys giggle, but you know, they've been brought up with technology. You know, my generation, we had computers at school. We studied computers. They were born with them almost kind of in their hands. It's really, you know, everything that they do is around being tech native. It's a really socially responsible generation, so they're really looking to make a difference. It's really important to them that their work has purpose and that they're feeling responsible for the society that they're working within. So that's really, really good as well. They like transparency. So this is in everything. So this is from all the parts of the job, you know, not kind of just polishing up the best bits when you're at interview, but showing them everything, to understanding what the salaries are, not only for them, but for the rest of the departments as well. So that's really important. They wanting to see that. They want to be connected. So, you know, this I find very frustrating, particularly with my youngest son. You know, he's connected all the time, but not necessarily in the way that I'd like him to be, like speaking to me. So, you know, the communication is there. They're looking for experiences. So they're wanting a job that is going to give them experiences within what they're looking for. So that, I think that's really key for them. And you know, when we're thinking about writing adverts, that can be really important, to not talk about the tasks of the job, but what experiences it's going to give them in terms of that. They're looking for flexibility in terms of working, you know, working from home, working from wherever. You know, there's digital nomads is a phrase that's used, which is particularly with the IT industry, where really they can work wherever in the world, you know, because they're all connected and can do that. They're realistic as well, which is sometimes underestimated, but they really understand, you know, kind of what they want from the workplace, but also what the workplace wants from us. Or wants from them. There's a really superb TED talk which is called "What Do We Know About the Generation After Millennials" by a guy called Jason Dorsey, and it's so interesting. So he works looking at the differences in generations and how we can work together and how we can engage. And one of the key things about your generation and Generation Z is that they are you are more influential of us than we are of you. So, you know, you find the tech, you're using the tech, we're impressed by it, we want to learn. So, you know, it's a really superb TED talk. If you've got sort of 20 minutes over lunch, I'd really recommend that. So what they are not is they're not resilient, they're not shy, and they're not loyal. So obviously this is really important to understand this, particularly if you're recruiting. So resilience, was Simon Sinek, who does all about the why. So he's a really superb speaker. He's recently done a lot about Generation Z and being resilient in the workplace. And basically, if they don't like something, they'll go. So, you know, rather than thinking, okay, it'll get better, or you know, it'll change, or this is, you know, I'm learning from this, they just think, I'm not enjoying this storm, I'll go and find a different boat to sail, I'll go and find a new job. So they'll have confidence, and they will exude this, particularly at interview. You know, they know what to do, they know what to say, and they can do all of that. But it's really important when you're assessing people to look beyond this. And I don't know if either of you guys have had any experience in terms of this, but often the person they demonstrate at interview can be completely different to the person that's actually doing the job. And that can be quite frustrating.
Yeah, I've literally just had that. And when you say not loyal, he just jumped ship for 500 quid. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's on a monthly basis, that's nothing, is it? And the whole risk of doing that, but
yeah.
it does happen. Yeah. So yeah, the loyalty bit, you're right, you know, they will just go. The other important thing to remember is that 51% of leaders are currently Generation X, and Generation Z know what they need to do to impress Generation X. And there's a kind of a meeting that needs to happen both ways. You know, if you're employing younger staff, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, you know, what management need to do to make sure that you're engaged, as well as what you need to do to make sure that you fit in and aren't so different from what they're looking for, their kind of generation. So in terms of this, in terms of recruitment, so those 3 top tips basically. So the first one is be clear about what you do and why you do it. So going back to what we talked about before, they're looking for purposeful, driven work and social responsibilities. So it's really important. So it's really important to communicate things like your vision and your mission, which I know with you guys is something that you're working on at the moment. So it's really important that they understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and what difference that will make to people. So this is information that needs to be out there on the internet. It needs to be out there in your job adverts, on your website, so that people can find it and be really clear in terms of what they want to do. If you've got a CSR policy, again, include that as part of what you're doing, and that should be something that's really easy to find. Okay, so number 2 is meet your talent in a digital world. So, and I think this is really important, that, you know, the whole process of interviewing is very much the same, you know, now as it was 20 years ago. It's about having a conversation and deciding whether you want to work with somebody or not, and it should be a 2-way conversation. But actually, so whilst the bones are the same, the bit that's different is how you go about doing that. You know, this is a group of people who are really digitally savvy, that they understand all of this. So it's really important to do things like show what your technology is and how you communicate. So you know, we still send emails that invite people to interview. What we're doing more and more is using text or using WhatsApp, and using different ways of communicating, which is much quicker, it's much more relaxed, but actually it's much more suitable, and it impresses the candidates. So if you're trying to attract this generation, you need to be able to do this. So 95% of Gen Z, which I think is quite low actually, use a smartphone. So everything needs to be digitally, you know, phone enabled, which, you know, it's still amazing how many things aren't. But, you know, to have a smooth recruitment process, they need to be able to get their phone out, apply quickly, and get a response really quickly as well. And then the final thing is you need to demonstrate how they will interact in the workplace. So what they're wanting to see is the human side of the organisation, and sometimes companies forget this because they're so digitally able. They don't realise that actually what they're wanting to see is how the workplace actually works. So it's really important that the leadership team is on social media, that they are, you know, speaking about what the business does, speaking about their own values, the company values. They can find this information out there. So, you know, we would really encourage any of our clients to look at that as a long-term employer branding piece, so that that information is there. Use collaborative communication as well. I mean, I don't know if you guys use things like Slack and Yammer, but ways of communicating. So they're ways of communicating that are slightly different from email. So whereas email tends to be from me to you, it's kind of more of a conversation. So you go into a project and everybody is talking within that project. So again, those are things that you know, kind of that Generation Z would like to see within the workplace. If they can see that, they, you know, it's a comfortable place for them to be. And also to really think about the language that is used within the recruitment process. So rather than talking about, you know, next stage interview, you might want to use phrases like, you know, we'd like to have a two-way conversation about how well you'll fit with this job, you know, what your values are, all of the, you know, sort of key words that are going to make that Generation Z much more engaged with you. And they want the communication to be personal as well. So it needs to be smart enough not to just be, you know, dear whoever, but actually to talk to them individually, and communication to be, you know, I'm texting you, or I'm WhatsApping you, not to a big group of people. The other thing that's really important is, you know, and this comes back to kind of like the trust pilot and review culture that has been created, is that 60% of Gen Z will rely on other people to tell them what it's like to work in your organization. And as our organization, we are doing loads of work with clients on this at the moment. So what they're looking for is recommendations and referrals, basically. So the key ones for this, and I do these kind of quick workshops on these as well, are Indeed and Glassdoor. And it's really important to look at kind of what the information is that's out there, because this generation is going to be using this information to decide whether they want to progress with an interview. So we had a situation last year where, you know, we were definitely losing candidates at second stage because they were looking at the reviews of the company we were working for and thinking, you know what, this isn't where I want to be. So it's just really that's really important. So those are the three main points, I would say. Have you got any questions?
It ticks everything. I think we kind of, that helps a bit. The bit about the workplace helps actually, because I think we've been so tech driven, maybe because they didn't have it, we're kind of going the other way. So we're focusing tech on people that communicate normally. I don't know what the right phrase is.
So what do you mean by normally? Sort of using email and kind of more standard?
Yeah, so we're trying to starting, like, I know the marketing team started using, is it Twin? No, I can't think what it's called. Is it Monday? So, you know,
yeah. All
those sorts of things, so they can communicate when they're out and about, and it's a bit more little laid back, isn't it, than an email? And
yeah, and actually that you know, that generation is going to need that, but also what they'll do is they'll influence the rest of us. So I did a training course which used Slack and I hated it, but actually that was the way we communicated. You know, everything was in there. It's a bit like the whole Teams portal where you can put your questions in and links in and whatever. You know, and it will become more regular. That's what people will do more usually.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, isn't it? We haven't got many, if any. Is Abby a Gen Z?
Yeah, Abby is 23.
Yeah, I've got one Gen Z.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So it would be worth kind of just having a bit of a conversation with her about, you know, how she views the workplace, because it is so different.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of what if she was boss for a day, what would she do? And, you know, what did she like about the recruitment process, and what would she have done differently? Because I think, because they've got ideas, they've got great ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've got a few ads, haven't we, at the minute, so it wouldn't hurt to get a fresh pair of eyes.
Yes. And so with adverts, it's very much about talking to them personally. So when we write the adverts, we always use, you know, we are looking for, you know, what we want you to do is. So it's a really trying to make it a conversation between us and the person reading it.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, definitely. I've made a few notes as well, because yeah, it's always good to pass on, isn't it?
Yeah, well, what I'll do is from this, I'll send you out a swipe file, which will give you the information we've covered, basically. So you've got that as well. And then what, you know, I mean, we offer strategy sessions. So the kind of the ones for this month are looking at current recruitment issues. So kind of what's happening in the current marketplace, which we kind of talked about at the last one. We talked about it across the growth course that we've done. Recruiting generations Z and generation C and who they are and why they're important. So generation C is much more about tribes of people and about them being similar and having similar styles and habits. But if you want to kind of talk, you know, more about that, then you just, if you go on the website, and my diary's on there, and you can click to book a strategy session, and, you know, I'm happy to talk you through that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, sounds
We're
good.
open to anything and everything.